All right, enough about baseball players choking on their vomit.
Start with the alcohol. He started
dare you to
open that way.
That is how we start a conversation about Luke chapter 17, 1 through 10.
Millstone into the sea.
We're going to talk about some temptations and millstones and forgiveness
trees.
and mulberry trees and all that wonderful stuff.
Eat the mulberries.
Yeah, let's get after it.
Leave away, spit out my Lord in every way. Yet I'm still welcome in the yard.
Luke chapter 17, verses 1 through 10.
Really depressing.
Thanks, sorry.
And
We're
when
not
I
starting with
die,
you this time.
Yeah.
call God
you better not.
each of his cries.
So Jesus says to his disciples, what? Anyone want to start?
Temptations are coming.
Temptations are coming. Temptations will happen.
It will happen.
Things that will scandalize you
Stuff that
will
will scandalize
come,
you. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's true, but you don't want to be the one by which they come. That would be
don't be
bad.
the scandalizer.
That evidently is bad.
Right.
Yeah.
It would be better for that person.
To tell you how bad that is.
Yes.
It
How
would be
bad?
better for you to jump off of a bridge with cinder blocks wrapped around you
Just imagine that.
and be found in a bay. Sorry, you got to have an inside story to that one.
Right.
Yeah.
Than to cause. And
that's-
evident. I mean, it says one of these little ones, so evidently there's somebody around that Jesus is able to point to, who's littler than he is.
Let's not go down that road. It's gonna run off the rails.
That could go off the rails in a hurry.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't know these guys. I'm just here.
But it would be better for you to have this millstone neck thing than cast into the sea than to cause one of these little ones to be scandalized.
Scandalized, yes.
To lead them into temptation, stumble, however you're going to do that, right?
I mean, could that? I mean, honestly, we were just talking about the baseball guy.
Snare or entrap,
Right.
actually.
Could this be the guy that I got to assume the baseball guy doesn't know how to whip up a fentanyl meth cocktail himself. He bought it from somebody.
Sure.
Right? Or somebody brought it with them.
Maybe.
I mean, is that who it's talking about? I mean, that's an extreme example, but is
Right.
that a
No.
kind of a modern day example of,
Well,
of
I
that?
think certainly where it leads to is it leads to our, I think like our responsibility for each other, right? For another, because the language isn't. It's like, yeah, there's temptations, but it's what is your role in that, and your role, your responsibility for one another, right?
Yeah.
And so it moves real quick into this language of forgiveness, and this is what you're called to do, right? This is a responsibility you have.
Well, it's a family of God thing, right? I mean, because he's talking to his disciples,
Yeah.
later he's talking to the apostles,
Yeah.
so it
And there it
centers
changes a
down more.
little bit because there's this connection, at least in this text, between withholding forgiveness and causing someone to sin,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's this quick change that happens that if you rebuke your brother, right, and do not forgive him, that is actually causing him to sin. That's
Yeah.
causing. So I think there's a sin in the sense of the sin being talked about here is not necessarily, although I think it's within the context. I think you could go there. But the sin here is having somebody dejected and turning away from God, thinking that there's no hope for them, right?
'Cause you can't find forgiveness.
This is a causing a Judas kind of thing, right? Of thinking there's no hope, and the only thing to do is to go off
Commit suicide.
and commit
Yeah,
suicide,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I mean that's an extreme example again, but
Right.
the idea here of withholding that forgiveness will cause them to turn away from God, and it would be better for you if you were condemned to death than to cause somebody to turn away
Well,
from
this
God.
is like that example you're not always talking about. You mentioned periodically about the French philosophers, right?
Oh,
With
sure.
humanism,
Yep.
who actually were honest about their philosophy, and
Yep.
they went and they slit their wrists
Yeah.
because that was the result.
That
That's
was
what
the
you
result
did.
of their philosophy,
Yeah,
right?
and
yeah.
I mean, and it's almost it's very similar in that
Yeah,
way. That,
it would be in the sense of causing somebody to lose hope
Mm-hmm.
and lose all sense of worth or any value whatsoever.
Yeah.
That they are completely lost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
To condemn them in their sins and
Right.
then leave them there
right.
is
Yep.
that's worthy of the punishment.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
The point is, and it even like he just in this text he just fronts it too. He's like, and if he does it 7 times and 7 times 7, what he just
Forgive
keeps.
him. Yeah, forgive
and
him,
he
forgive him.
and he says, "I'm sorry," right?
Yeah.
Or I repent.
Yeah,
So you forgive him
you forgive him.
every time, right?
I think that nature of rebuking
right.
is difficult in this world. It's not seen as a form of love and guarding and
Yeah.
saving someone.
Well,
It's,
I think it actually comes from this, though. I think rebuking is hard in this world because too many people have been rebuked
Without-
forgiveness.
without the forgiveness.
more of
right?
a judgment.
That's the judgmentalism of Christianity, if you will.
Certainly, yeah. The church today, right? This is what we all have members, I'm sure, but I got people in my church that are not members yet, but they come regularly, and they over and again. It's like they're not sure.
Yeah.
Like you've spoken that word of forgiveness, and they're waiting for the other shoe to
expecting the other
drop.
shoe to
Right.
drop.
When
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
when you're
Right.
gonna say,
Yeah.
but not really.
Yeah.
Right. But let me hold. I'm
yeah.
Maybe
serious.
for these
No,
guys, but not
absolutely.
you, right?
Right,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah, yeah.
because that's been their experience before,
Yep.
that it's been
Yep.
pulled back away.
Or
And
they
that they're
felt this
terrified.
loving
Yeah.
only to be rejected because
Right.
they've had a falling out, right?
Something
Or
something they went
Yep.
too far at some point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so this call here, I think, is powerful to be that one. Forget.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what's fascinating then is the apostles speak to their Lord. So these are the you mentioned when we were translating the change. Jesus speaks to the disciples, and it's the apostles. The language Luke uses is different here.
It's like the disciples is a greater group.
But I think what's interesting
could
is
be.
it
Could
could
be.
be, but I think what's interesting is maybe it's highlighting who these guys are. These are the
Yeah.
sent ones.
Yeah, they are.
These
That's
are the
true.
going out guys,
That's
right?
true.
The apostles.
And they're saying if this is our job,
and so their response though is great, right?
Increase our faith.
Increase our faith. Like this
Yeah,
is
that's
terrifying,
true.
right?
That's true.
And increase our faith. And how does Jesus respond to that request for more faith?
yeah,
Give me a little more faith.
You have no faith. No.
that's right. That's right. Could you ask? Because you got none.
Yeah.
No, that's we think of the mountain obviously from Matthew, right? If you have faith like a mountain, or if you have faith to move mountains, I think it is. This one is if you have faith like a mustard seed, right? Then
could
he
move a
simply
tree,
says
yeah.
you can move a tree.
Yeah. Tell it to be uprooted and replanted in the ocean.
Yeah,
Which is
and
bizarre.
it would obey.
And it would obey.
So, and the obey is the caveat there, right? So he actually, I think, in the way that I read this text, is he's reading them as the mulberry tree, right? So he's just given them this great command, if you will, and they say, we can't do that.
Yeah.
And he says, if I trust that this can happen, it will happen. And so now he then moves into I've commanded you, and now there's an expectation of that command, if you will.
Okay. Which
that,
flows
that
into the
comes
next, the final little
Yeah.
image here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, is that what it is? The connection to God's power? I mean, is that kind of what
Yeah.
the
I think so.
faith is the
Well, it's
conduit? But then it was something. I'm sorry, that's stupid. Why would you want a tree to fly into the sea?
he does
I mean,
it.
I'm sorry,
Right.
but I mean seriously,
right.
what? I don't get the metaphor. What does
He
that
does
matter?
it, but
Who would say that?
the idea here is that
Let's rocket launch a tree
They're-
into the sea. I mean, it's just something
they're
that guys do.
asking for him to increase their faith, and he kind of comes back with saying, "I have faith in you, that you're actually able to carry this out." Right? I've given you the ability to do it. I've given you that you're under this great command, if you will, and control. that you can actually carry out this task of
Which leads
forgiving
into
somebody
the
7
servants
times in a
bit.
day.
And,
Yeah,
and by the way,
certainly.
because you're servants, and,
Right.
you can do whatever you need to do because I'm going to give you the power to do it.
Right.
And I at least would say that, at the very least, you see that faith sort of specializes, if you will, or operates in the realm of what seems impossible and probably even
Yep.
ridiculous.
Ludicrous,
Like,
yeah.
like
7
forgiving
times?
somebody 7 times. Like,
Yeah,
that's
in
ridiculous.
the same day.
Ludicrous.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah.
that's like
Yeah.
asking
Yeah.
a mulberry to go to the sea, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Ludicrous.
And, he goes,
Exactly.
and you'll be fine. Like that. This is what you're given to do.
Yeah, it's beyond all logic and comprehension.
Upside
And yet
down
you'll still
kingdom
do it.
stuff again.
Ernie, you still with us?
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah,
it all in.
excited
Just
now
like you
to
guys,
figure
just
that
taking it
out.
all in.
All right.
Yeah, that's what I do.
So then he turns though to this language of servants coming in from the field, right? And what about them, Ernie? It's your time to shine.
Oh, I'm not a shiner.
Pressure.
I'm more of a. Yeah. So.
We know you're always in black. We get it.
We are the men in black. Anyways, actually, we are the forgiven. now,
Cash
right?
will black.
So come at once, and again, this is the section about the unworthy servants, about what we should expect of a servant, and just literally by faith to see that come at once and recline at table, or would we rather not say, serve me and drink, and afterward you will eat and drink? And I think it's almost as if the Lord is saying, this is what we're called to do as children of God. Well, we're not expecting God to give us another gold star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a lot of gold
Oh,
stars. I don't know about
goodness.
you
Another
out
trophy.
there, but
Oh, it's a trophy.
I like a trophy.
sticker
please.
You
chokes.
get a
I
trophy.
took
You
the
get a
stairs
trophy.
today.
He gets a trophy.
Oh my goodness.
but no, on
Drives me
Oh,
nuts.
it's like the Fitbits when you get like 5,000
Yeah, oh
steps.
my
It
goodness.
throws a little party. Woo, yay for you.
But isn't that
We're like
what
not gonna have a heart attack today. Yay. It's like
No, there's some truth to this.
but I think when people say to you, like say to Paul, like, oh man, you're such a great pastor, you do all these things, or you're such a good Christian, Tim. You say,
Nice.
and you don't say, what would someone who, we are unworthy
only
servants.
by the grace of God, right?
And we do it humbly, we do it quietly, we don't do it like thinking that we were getting anything out of it here, but we're just out of faith doing what we're called to do.
Yeah.
I think that's,
Yeah,
the
that's
key.
true.
Just ordinary vocation, Christian life.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. I mean, we stand up every Sunday and think that we have the ability to actually pronounce forgiveness on our people.
Yeah.
That's a faithful act, right? And I
Yeah.
think if we could impose that same or give that same faith to our people through something like this, that's
you could
incredible.
run it. It's a moving a mulberry tree kind of act.
Yeah.
It's really too good to be true. It sounds bizarre.
Yeah.
These people sit there. You get up to preach. They've heard it before.
Especially bizarre that you get to do it.
Yeah.
right?
That okay. This guy that he's there. He's performing. He's in the pulpit. Whatever. What's he gonna do? And what Jesus is saying is, he do it.
Yeah.
Forgive them.
Right.
Right. Like.
Yeah.
Speak
And at
that,
the end of the
bring,
day-
bring the rebuke and
Yeah.
the forgiveness to them.
And at the end of the day, don't think that's anything special. Don't think that
Yeah.
somehow you're elevated
Right.
in that. That's just your job.
Yeah, do your job.
And and so moving on to kind of the greater, all of us being disciples of Christ, then that's the job of our people as well. Don't think that you're doing anything special when you're free. That's who you are.
Right.
It's
It's
what
so
you've
funny.
been
I think
given
I've
to
told
do.
you this guys this story before. When I was in seminary, Gibbs got up and he was preaching. I don't even remember the text he was preaching on, but I remember he was up in the pulpit and he made a movement out of the pulpit because he would never kind of do that
Yeah, it wasn't
normally
his style.
in
Right.
the chapel. And he moved to the middle and he had this moment where he goes, and basically it went something like, and I don't know why God chose me to do this with you today. I don't know why he chose you to be here today. Why, and he named the date that we were sitting there, and he goes,
Right.
but he called me to tell you something, and then he did. I mean, you are free. You know, he went into kind of this
absolution, yeah.
absolution bit, and I mean, even thinking about it now, I'm like, whoa! It still kind of it strikes me as one of those moments where he took that mantle for a bunch of men preparing for ministry, right? And he
Right.
forgave.
Yeah.
I think guys, we could do that for their congregations.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think Jesus is saying it doesn't take much faith to do that.
Yeah.
It'd take a huge amount of faith to say to a mulberry tree, uproot yourself and be thrown into a tree or into the
Or,
sea.
or I'm going to give you the faith to do
right,
that.
and
This
what
is
he's
actually a thing.
he's saying is it doesn't take a great amount. All you have, just do it. I've given you the words to do it.
Yeah.
Just when somebody asks, forgive them.
Yeah, I would.
And
Yeah, I
so-
think a text like this can be very, just a real blessing for pastors, for parish pastors, to kind of to hear again and to preach again.
Yeah.
That so much is always demanded of us, expectation-wise. Here's what you ought to do. Here's what the pastoral office ought to look like, and it's sort of like your job as core is fairly simple. You know, it's not that it's easy, but it's not complicated.
Right.
Rebuke and forgive. And do that job, and at the end of the day, don't think you get a gold star for doing it.
I
Like,
don't.
No.
Happy face sticker.
Maybe.
a pat on the back, maybe.
Or at least one drawn on
But
your
you
paper.
you go back tomorrow. You're gonna do it
over
again.
Can do the
Yeah.
same thing.
And that's faithful. That's good work. You know.
Yeah. And it's not easy. I mean, even the apostles say, increase our faith, right? We don't
yeah,
think
yeah.
that this is
Yeah.
possible. And Jesus says, and this is kind of that, I think that hurrah, if you will, from him, you can do it.
You can do it.
I'm here with you. I've given you that faith. I've given you that ability. Go and do it.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I think it's because we're not doing it under our own power. We're doing it under the power of Christ.
Sure.
Because
Right?
because
He's
our
doing it.
I mean, our faith is Christ, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just whether it's living in His name and serving, versus someone who is, you said it earlier, maybe it was in the other video, I don't know, where we say the gospel but then we take it back a little bit for them. That's what it is. It's like, no, this is who you are. You're a redeemed, paid for, bought with the price child of God. This is just what we do. It's not anything special in a sense of what I'm doing for God, because God
Yeah.
doesn't need God doesn't need
Right.
your good works.
Yeah,
Your neighbor
yeah.
does, right? So just
This is your
Continue
common
on.
Lord.
But the
Yeah.
forgiveness is still miraculous, I think.
Yeah.
It is.
And in many ways, we take for granted.
And a wonder.
After doing it every 6 days, and then no matter what your format is, whether you're doing the repentance forgiveness piece as part of the sermon, or you do that as actually a confession absolution bit,
Yeah.
that's a part of the liturgy, wherever you're doing it in your service, we do it every 7 days, and you lose the impact of it. I mean, it was exactly as a
Yeah.
sheepdog of the shepherd, right? What it is you're doing. The forgiveness of sin's a big deal.
But I think it isn't anything special, you might say,
yeah.
is important for our people.
Right.
Because they might look at us and go, "Oh, the pastor forgave my sins," but I mean, he's trained in that. He
But
does
they
all
can
of
do it
that.
with each other,
They can
too.
do it with everybody,
Yeah.
right? They can go out and forgive their neighbors, and it's not anything special in a sense of it's a power that they've been given by their
It's
Lord.
It's the old both and,
yeah.
right?
even those words, even the words increase our faith. I think and when you say that, I think a lot of people think that faith is something more than Christ, or they can think that it's more than Christ. It's something like, how's your
Jesus
faith? How is
and-
your faith?
yeah, how's your
and someone
faith
say,
today?
oh, I do this, I do that, I do this, I do that. No, your
not
faith,
enough.
your faith is Christ.
You're not
So-
doing enough. Or-
Just believe it, man. That's right. I hope that's helpful. Check out craftedpreaching.com. There will be good resources there as well. And God bless your preaching. We'll see you next week.
Take care.